All right, so moving on to the final segment, I'll be sharing my UFC Mount Rushmore list. So, this was hard, but these are the following 4 fighters that I have on my UFC Mount Rushmore list. So, on my UFC Mount Rushmore list, I have Jon Jones, Chuck Liddell, Anderson Silva, and Amanda Nunes. I do believe that is the 4 right people to be on the UFC Mount Rushmore list. Jon Jones is arguably one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. He's the greatest UFC light heavyweight champion of all time, winning that belt 2 respective times in his Hall of Fame career. You look at Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell is an OG of the UFC, became the light heavyweight champion back in 2005, and held the title, had a total of 5 successful title defenses in a matter of 2-year span. Then you look at Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, to me, is the greatest middleweight champion of all time. He had the longest reign in UFC history out of all UFC champions in the respective company's history. Then I believe that Amanda Nunes, as a woman, deserves to be on this list because she's the first ever double champion in women's history in the MMA. What she did for the women's division before she retired marked her as the greatest women's fighter of all time in MMA history, and she goes down as one of the most iconic figures in combat sports history in the women's department. I do believe that those respective fighters are more deserving to be on my UFC Mount Rushmore list. But let's go into a deeper look at this. Jon Jones is a 3-time UFC world champion, holding the light heavyweight title twice, and is currently the reigning defending UFC heavyweight champion, but unfortunately has not had a title defense yet. But Chuck Liddell was there for the OG days of the UFC. He was there for the beginning days, and one of the first ever light heavyweight champions when he won the title back in 2005. Then you look at Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva's great middleweight title reign lasted a total of 2,457 days, the longest champion in UFC history, like I just touched upon a few moments ago. I don't think his greatness in terms of holding a title for that long in the UFC will ever be duplicated again, because it's hard for even champions to have 3 damn successful title defenses nowadays in the UFC. The fact that he held the title for that long, I don't think anybody's ever going to hold a world title that long again in the UFC. And then, like I just said, Amanda Nunes, to me, is one of the greatest women's fighters in all of combat sports history, boxing and MMA, because of what she's established herself to become the first ever women's double champion in UFC history. So I just believe that those 4 respective fighters, to me, are on my Mount Rushmore list. There's a lot more fighters I could have thrown in there, but I do believe that those 4 names changed the game forever in the UFC. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.